But because what happens is if you now are a great beat maker and you get so caught up in the fact that you can't mix and master as good as somebody who just spent 4 years doing it, you're never going to release any music because you're going to spend the next 4 years learning how to mix and master. But where does that end? Joj, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can. You're a little bit low, but not too bad. Welcome to Mentor Monday. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's much better. Where are you calling in from?
St. Louis at the moment.
St. Louis. Nice.
I know it's been a while, but I don't know if you remember, I was helping you edit some of the radio bits a while back.
Yes.
It's been a long time since we last caught up.
It's been a long time and a long crazy time since then. Things have definitely changed.
Lots changed in the world.
So how's it going? What's your question?
I like that some of the stuff you were talking about was great, and I actually wanted to build or piggyback on that.
For sure.
I get the whole, like, it's the daily efforts and grinds and how far you've made it since yesterday. One thing that I ran into, and it might be more of a mindset thing, but you're pushing forward, right? And you're doing these things, whatever technique you've really attached yourself to through production, whether it's sampling or diving into synths, and you're building yourself, and that's the everyday. But at the same time, like, if you want to be adventurous and explore like a different aspect of music production, you're sort of still at ground zero again. I mean, it's always infinite, right? There's always something you won't know.
For sure.
Always something you're going to be growing with. I guess, how do you balance the emotions of that reality? Because at least for myself, I've had times where I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm getting deeper into sampling, which is something I love. And then the next day I get really curious about, oh, what's this like whole mixing and mastering thing? And then you get sort of inundated with the cold truth that, you're still a noob at something.
Yeah, and we're always noobs at something. I don't think that there can ever be a total fix for that, but it's two things. It's like, the first thing is, it's kind of related to the question I just answered about embracing the evolution, like that you're constantly evolving, but then also building yourself up to a point where you're good enough at something that you don't have to rely on other skills. Like, say you became a great like sample-based beat maker, and then you do discover that world of mixing and mastering. What you can't do is hold yourself to the same standard that you would somebody who devoted their life to learning mixing and mastering, because that's just going to be self-defeating. You're never going to, if you just spent, say, the past 4 years becoming a really great beat maker, which has a lot of things to do other than mixing and mastering, the person who spent the last 4 years learning about mixing and mastering did not spend the last 4 years learning beat making like you did. So those are two, like, you can't compare because we don't know what somebody else's journey and what somebody else's knowledge base is. But what you have to, in knowing that fact, you have to embrace the fact that your mixing and mastering skills as a beat maker, as somebody who focused on one thing, or your skills in the thing that you focused on are at this level, and everything you didn't focus on are slightly lower level or much lower level. And if you embrace that, but because what happens is, if you now are a great beat maker and you get so caught up in the fact that you can't mix and master as good as somebody who just spent 4 years doing it, you're never going to release any music because you're going to spend the next 4 years learning how to mix and master. But where does that end? Okay, 4 years become a great beat maker, 4 years become a mix and master. Oh, but there's people out there who spent 8 years learning to mix and master, so let's add another 4 years onto that. Yep. You see, like, the chain.
It keeps going. And you never win that fight, no matter what you do.
You never win it. So what you have to do is embrace your skills. Art is not worth anything, and I don't mean worth like monetary. I mean, it's just not worth anything in terms of its value, whatever value it provides to people, entertainment or knowledge. It's not worth anything if it doesn't get released, right? So you have to embrace the fact that not everything you do is going to be perfect, and not everything you're going to do is going to be as good as somebody could do it. But if we all stopped ourselves from releasing stuff before we were 100% great, there would be no art in the world, because nobody's 100% great at everything, you know?
Facts.
And then think about how to solve that problem. You could learn. There's probably three paths you could go. Let's say you're a great beat maker and your mixing and mastering skills are not up to par. This is actually something that I deal with all the time. I'm not a mix and master. I love creating music. I don't love the technical aspect of mixing and mastering. So here's one solution I do. I learned very basic mixing and mastering skills, developed a little mastering chain that I use on most of my beats, and for the most part, call that good enough. And that allows me to release music and put things out that, sure, I could send it off and pay somebody, because that's the alternate route, right? You find that person who's a great mix and master, and hopefully your beat making skills have afforded you an opportunity to be able to afford to pay somebody to mix and master. That's the great thing about art and commerce. We can kind of spread the wealth. So embrace your current skills and get yourself up to a point where it's passable skill, or hire somebody that has the skill that you're looking for.
Definitely agree on the finding, I guess you could call it finding peace with yourself.
For sure.
At least for me, I think for the past couple of months, that was something I struggled with. And it definitely can lead to just paralysis of not putting anything out. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And we want to avoid that at all costs. We want to get stuff out. And it's also like, you don't have to put anything out. I think if you want to make art, you could just make art for yourself and be 100% happy not releasing anything ever. But I think what most of us are talking about is how do we get art that's great out there, whether it's music, whether it's, visual art, whatever. So if that is your goal, to get stuff out there, get yourself to a point where you're comfortable enough to get it out there. And if you can only rely on yourself, that's the safest way to make sure you're releasing as much as possible, because the only roadblock is you, So if you're being your own roadblock, figure out how to get around that roadblock by either going with somebody else or saying fuck the roadblock and knock over it and just blow right through it,
Right.
Thanks so much for calling in, Jojo. I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too.